louder than the unbelief. Praise hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I praise hallelujah. Yes, heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm, louder and louder. keep light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, you're touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're mending every heart. I worship you. Worship you, 'cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Yes, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh yeah, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh yeah, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Yes, that is who you are. 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 Jesus. Yes, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. You are here.
Welcome, folks, to this
Good
beautiful Sunday morning. Welcome to the
Wow.
broadcast. My name is Geoff,
I'm Helen.
and we are glad that you're joining us this
For
morning.
our table talk.
Absolutely.
This is church right now, and we're
Yep,
loving it.
absolutely. We just
Yes.
want to just say again how we
Yeah.
appreciate the privilege of being able to come into your homes or in your
Yes.
vehicles or wherever you're using your social
Yes.
devices. And it's an honor for
Yes.
us to be able to come to you because
Yeah.
we love what we do.
Yes.
We love what we do because
Yes.
not only have we been impacted by
Yeah.
our relationship with Jesus, but we have the
Yeah.
privilege to let you in on our experience on walking through our life and our
Yes.
journey and what
Yeah.
we've learned. And
Yes.
and it's
And the-
great always to hear from your
Yes.
testimonies and things that
And you know
you've
what?
done.
I love what we're talking about today, honey.
Yes.
Living unleashed. Because
Absolutely.
that's been such a journey, still our journey
It's
today.
still a journey for
And
it
for so
definitely.
many of you.
I say personally, it's definitely a journey.
Yes.
But it's interesting. Living unleashed tells me something about something that's very important.
Yes.
God came and resides in us so that we can live unleashed.
Yes.
And so much of life, I don't know about you or what your struggle is or what you're working through, but
Yes.
just her and I dialoguing about our own journeys in our own life and what
Yes.
God's been doing in our own personal lives. there's so much about life that keeps us bound.
Yeah.
Whether it's our beliefs, whether it's how we interpret things, how we look at things, our
Yes.
perspective,
Yeah.
our view.
Yeah.
All those things are huge in
Yes.
how we see God and how
Yes.
we live for Him. And for so long, and we've talked about this too,
Yeah.
honey, and for so long, I lived my life as a prisoner.
Yes.
Not so much because of circumstances, so much about,
Yeah.
but my mindset.
Yeah.
I tried for years to fit in a certain mold and a
Yeah.
church mold for that, and
Yeah.
it just never fit. I always was struggling with that, and
Yes.
and when I hear things about God wants us to live free,
Yes.
He wants us to live unleashed. Those things I struggle with, and even to this day, there are still
Yes.
insecurities that I'm working through. There's still things
Yeah.
that I'm trying to reach a certain level that I
Yeah.
put pressure on myself.
Yeah.
That if I don't attain that, I fail,
Yeah.
and so that I'm battling against myself, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you can relate to that, but when we want to talk about today is
Yes.
bringing freedom to that mindset,
Yes.
bringing freedom to be who God's created us to be,
Yes.
and it's important for us to talk about this because I
Yes.
think it's something that's really pertinent
Yes,
in
it is.
in lives
Yes.
and things like that.
It totally is, hun. Like, I know our dialogue the last few days has been very impactful, even for me and you.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's
Just
something
diving in.
that listeners don't get to see
Yes.
us dialogue through this during the week
Yes.
because we struggle too. I struggle.
Yes.
I work through perspective. I
Yeah.
push through how my feelings want to override the reality that
Yes.
that is truth over
Yes.
a lie,
Yeah.
and so much of my life gets adjusted
Yes.
constantly all day that sometimes I even find myself getting discouraged
Yeah.
that it's just not going to happen, and sometimes I believe that lie. It's just
Yes.
not going to happen. This is
Yes.
what it's going to
yeah,
be the rest of
I'm
our
gonna
life.
be chained to that leash all my life, and it's not true. We have good news today that
Yeah.
we want to share to bring life
Yes.
and hope to you.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
And it's not only hope and life to you, but it's something that's impacting
Yes.
us continually. And so we need to embrace some of those things.
Yes.
And that's why I said in my post,
Yeah.
leading up to this this topic that we wanted to go through,
Yeah.
it's about getting real, working through disappointment, discouragement, and pushing through the yuck to find
Yes.
the gold.
Yes.
Because I don't know, somehow, I don't know if it's a belief, it has to do with a belief system that I've often accustomed myself to pattern after.
Yes.
I always
Yeah.
expect the gold to be there at the top.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to wrestle through stuff in life. Sometimes we
Yes.
have to push through things. Sometimes
Yeah.
we have to uncover things that we don't necessarily want to uncover because
Yeah.
it opens up wounds that maybe we've had or
Yes.
or feelings that we've had. And so I think sometimes that's why
Yes.
I'm afraid to go after those things because
Yeah.
they remind me of maybe hurts that I've had
Yes.
or disappointments and things like that. And so
Yes.
oftentimes what it's done is it's put me in a striving mode
Yes.
to attain something, to
Yes.
aim for something,
Yeah.
and never satisfied with the journey.
Hmm.
And I want to tell you folks that are listening here and watching us, that's a very tiresome life.
Yes. Yeah.
Very tiresome
Yeah.
life.
You know what? I have the verse we're jumping off of. I have it written down here in the Passion Translation, and I just want to declare that, and I want to share a few things too that maybe that I struggled with, because this is such a freeing, powerful declaration
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
Paul makes, and it comes from Romans 1. I can't remember verse 8.
Verse 16.
Verse 16.
Yep.
I didn't have that written down. But this is what Paul is declaring. He says, I refuse to be ashamed of the good news of God's liberating power unleashed
Unleashed, there's our word.
in
Yep.
us through Christ.
That's something that we've been working through. We're going through Romans together, Helen and I, and
Yeah.
and the way it starts, Paul begins, who wrote this letter to
Yes.
the church in Rome. He begins this letter by saying, "I am not ashamed." It's almost
Yes.
like he is making sure
Yeah.
that people know that he
Yes.
has nothing to prove.
Yeah.
He has nothing to prove. And for
Yeah.
so long,
Yeah.
to be honest, for so long,
Yeah.
I've struggled with approval. I've struggled with competing against other people.
Yes.
You know, I've always had
Yeah.
to strive to be the best because
Yes.
for so long I felt that I wasn't the best.
Yes.
I wasn't who I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so you move into striving, and then you get into church culture
Yes.
that really, really at times thrives on
Yes.
you aiming to become
Perfect.
better and
Perfect.
more like Jesus. And we talked about this. The illustration that I got
Yes.
is sometimes we see God's ideal. Here's God.
Yes.
And in the midst of that, there's us.
Yes.
And our goal in the
Yeah.
Christian life oftentimes is to strive to what God wants. Perfection and
Yes.
and righteousness and holiness and all these things. And so
Yeah.
we strive for that. And
Yeah.
as we strive, we
Yeah.
have standards. We don't do certain things because we're attaining to try to reach this point.
Yes, that
and so
perfection point.
in that journey
Yeah.
comes shame. In that
Yes.
journey comes disappointment. In that
Yes.
journey comes struggle and difficulty and sometimes hurt and mistrust because we're aiming for something that we
Yes.
can't obtain,
Yes.
but we're told we have to try.
Yes.
And so the higher the standards are, the more we pray, the more
Yes.
we study, all
Yes.
these things
Yeah.
to obtain something.
Yes.
And so we have to plow through shame and disappointment and frustration.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when we strive,
Yeah.
then we tend to compare ourselves with others that are down here.
Yes.
Oh, look at us!
Oh.
You just should be more committed, and
Yes.
and spiritual pride sets in because
Yes.
we see ourselves
Yes.
attaining what we think
Yes.
needs to be there. When
Yes.
Paul says,
Yeah.
"I'm not ashamed
Yeah.
of the good news,"
There-
why?
Yeah.
Because that good news already declared he was already righteous and made whole.
Yes.
No longer. You
Yes.
gotta listen to this, church,
Oh,
because
my
this has
goodness.
been a struggle for mine for
Yes.
years.
Mine too. Yeah.
It's already ours.
Yes.
We're not straining for something
Yeah.
that we're trying to attain.
Yes.
It's already ours. So Paul says this,
Yes.
I am not ashamed. I have nothing to be ashamed about. I don't have insecurities that
Yes.
hold me back.
Yes.
I don't have
Yeah.
the struggles
Yeah.
of trying to appease something that I
Yes.
can't appease. But
Yeah.
rather, he says, I'm not ashamed. It's a done issue. I am now unleashed to
Yes.
be everything that God has created
Yes.
me to be.
Yes.
And understanding that
Yes.
it's already been attained.
Yes.
Your Christian life has already been obtained.
Yes.
Everything that God has created in us
Yes.
is already
Yeah.
ours.
Yes. And I love that.
We
It's
just have to
God's
learn to
liberating.
live that reality out.
Yes. And I love that you said, because when we're in this striving to attain this perfection, because I tried to live in that perfection box a lot, and I chained myself to
Yes.
that box for many, many years. And I love the word, what it describes, the root issue of the shame that we feel because we're not reaching it.
Yeah.
We're not reaching it.
And sometimes that reaching is our belief that we're not good enough.
Yes.
And sometimes it's reinforced by
Yes.
good meaning people
Yes.
that you're just not committed
Yes.
enough.
Yeah.
Jesus isn't alive enough for you.
Yes.
And that puts
You're
people
not hungry
right
enough.
away. You're not hungry
strive
enough.
Yeah.
You're just not pressing into the things of God. And what that
Yes.
creates
Yes.
is
Yeah.
the aspect that I'm not good enough when
This
God
is what it
declares
says. Yes.
I am good enough.
Yes.
That's why we don't have to be ashamed.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it's already ours.
Yes, it is.
We live from the perspective
Yes.
it's already in
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So I looked it up because it became very real to me.
Yeah.
The feeling of shame comes from the belief that I'm basically flawed, I'm inadequate, I'm wrong, bad, unimportant, undeserving, and not good enough.
Right.
And at some early point in our lives, most of us have absorbed that lie, and that causes that
Yeah.
feeling of shame, and it's bound us. It's put us in that prison. But Paul says, I am not ashamed of the good news. There is good news that is going to liberate us
Yeah,
and
that's right.
unleash
Absolutely.
us to live. Oh, it's powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
Paul goes on to say in that passage that we talked about,
Yes.
I'm not ashamed of the good news.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to tell you what God has to say to us
Yes.
is good news.
Yes.
And it doesn't fuel striving.
Yes.
It fuels rest,
Yes.
because we know he's
Yes.
accomplished and what he's done.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like we're living not out of here,
Yes.
but living out of here.
Yeah.
It's already obtained.
Yes.
And so and sometimes this is a daily thing for us. Sometimes
Yes,
it's a
it is.
daily thing for me
Yes.
to
Yeah.
recognize what I am, because
Yes.
for too often I compare myself with others.
Yeah.
And when you compare ourselves with others, we lose the joy of our own journey,
Yes.
because we're striving to reach something. And when
That's
we don't
right.
reach it,
Yeah.
we get disappointed. And that's the bondage that oftentimes we
Yes.
rock back and forth
Yes.
with, when God's intent right from the beginning is for us to understand his good news
Wow.
message.
Yeah.
Paul recognized that. And when you look back at Paul's life, you realize he
Yes.
was
Yeah.
striving for all those kind
That's
of stuff.
right. He lived in that perfection box.
Absolutely.
And he was the one that people looked up to. I want to be like Paul. I want to be like Paul. He's flawed. Like that's.
And yet then he, through his experience with God,
Yes.
found freedom.
Yeah.
And was unleashed. And that's why he says, I've nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't have to
not
live with
ashamed.
disappointment. I don't have to live with striving.
Yes.
I don't have to
Yeah.
live with those things. And I want
Yes.
to tell you from the bottom of my heart, when we live in striving, it takes work.
Yeah. Yes, it
And
does.
it's not about work. It's
Yeah.
not about
Yeah.
us working harder
Yes.
and purer, and because
Yeah.
God's declared those things over us. If we could understand this truth, and it's
Yes.
something that I'm still working through, if we can understand that truth,
Yeah.
how our life would look
Yeah.
different,
Yes.
how we view others would look different.
Yes.
No longer would we be comparing ourselves to other people, but
Yes.
we would rejoice with their successes.
Yes.
We would rejoice when they
Yes.
do well, and
Yeah.
we wouldn't feel like we compete like so many times
Yes.
that I do.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I need a 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I strive for a 10 and I don't
Yes.
get it, I'm disappointed when really
Yes.
my best at that moment is an 8. And so I'm going to learn to celebrate that 8.
Yes.
We want to celebrate with you. And that's
Yes.
the message of Jesus. That's the message of the church. That's the message that the church ought to be declaring.
Yes.
When people come through these doors and
Yeah.
experience church, they should have a sense of
Yeah.
liberty inside of them,
That's
not
right.
going back and cleaning
Yeah.
out closets and cleaning out drawers and
Yeah.
and striving and striving and
Yes.
striving, but rather
Yeah.
looking at it from a finished angle. Because when we
Yes.
live out of a finished
Yes.
angle,
Yes.
it's something we let
Wow.
loose.
Yes.
And really, it's not us.
Yeah.
Because Paul says, I'm not ashamed. I have nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Did he make mistakes?
But-
Sure he did. Did he
Yeah.
have everything put together? No, he didn't.
Yeah.
But he still wasn't ashamed
Yeah.
because he knew who he was.
And that's the thing the good news does. It produces power in you.
Yes.
Because there's a truth that comes that
Yes.
dismantles the shame, that dismantles
Yes.
the lie, that dismantles the I'm not good enough, and it does something.
That really
it brings power
that really
in your
that
life.
really resonates with me, because
Yes.
that's been a struggle for years.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I haven't experienced the freedom of that already being a reality in my
Yes.
life. It's still I find myself in the striving mode, and
Yes.
sometimes I've learned I have to
Yeah.
turn off certain things because it
Yes.
moves me into that mode.
Yes.
But when I'm
Yeah.
empowered to be who God's created me, when you're empowered to be who
Yes.
God's created you to be,
Yes.
and accepted and
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
and valued
Yes.
in the process, because He
Yes.
declares you as righteous.
Yes.
He declares you
Yeah.
all these things.
Yeah.
He doesn't declare you righteous
Yeah.
and whole
Yeah.
and right
Yeah.
because you're in
Yeah.
process striving to be good.
Yes.
It's already done.
Yes,
the
it is.
work has already been
Yes.
done. And
Yes.
He rests in the fact that this good news is the
Yes.
power of God unleashed in you.
That's
God
right.
never
Yes.
intended us to
Yeah.
be in chains.
Never.
He never intended us to be in bondage
No.
to strive.
Yes.
Because He did it all for
Yes,
us.
He did.
And when that reality hits
Yes.
home,
Yes.
it changes our
Yeah.
world. It changes our life.
Yeah.
And it's not about having everything in order to please God.
No.
God's already pleased with us.
Yes, He is.
And it's living
Yeah.
out of that.
Yes, it is.
That-
And it is so amazing. And Romans 8:1, just the first part says, so now the case is closed. There remains no accusing voice of condemnation against
No.
anyone in Jesus. It's been done. It's been done. There is good news that can unleash us to live life. Live it to the full. It is so powerful when that truth comes in, and it
Yes.
started right from the beginning when Adam and Eve left the garden. They left in shame. They had to work their butts off to try to produce anything, but they were never meant to be out of the garden.
No.
Right from the beginning, God declared, you know what? I've already have a plan. It's already in place. There's going to come a second Adam. He's going to restore it all. We are meant to live in the garden, unleashed, live life. And when we
Restored.
believe the lie, the shame
Restored.
brings us out of the garden, and we try, we work. There's pain, there's suffering.
So
and
often
it
I've
doesn't
always
produce.
felt, this is being real, I've felt
Yeah.
I was always in the outside looking in because I
Yes.
could never measure up.
Yes.
The standard was too great, too high.
Yes.
And then yet I would make adjustments. I would try.
Try.
I'm going to make it my goal.
Yes.
But what happens when we get in a striving mold,
Yes.
what happens when we get in a work-oriented, standard-driven commitment, all these things we attach onto ourselves weighs us down, and
Yes.
sooner or later,
Yeah.
time comes when we've had enough. We can't
Yeah.
do it any
And
longer.
sometimes we let go of faith, we let go of anything. Because you know what produces faith in us? It's good news. It's the second
Yes.
verse right under what Paul declares. I'm not ashamed of this good news. It is the liberating power of God in us,
Yes.
unleashing us.
Yes.
And then it says so.
in us.
Yes.
It's not outside of us. It's in us. When
Yeah.
Jesus Christ came to
Yes.
earth and sacrificed himself,
Yeah.
he opened the way for
Yes.
that now is an inner reality.
Yeah.
Whereas before we were separated.
Yeah.
But when Jesus came, he
Yeah.
took that separation and now it is inside of us.
Yes, it
Every
is.
person.
Yes.
The potential of
Yes.
transformation
Yeah.
and living
Yeah.
out God's best
Yeah.
in us
Yeah.
is there for everyone.
And this is what it says. This good news reveals something. It reveals a righteousness from God. Not our own standards,
No.
not our own self-effort. It is a right standing, approval, innocent, flawless.
Yes.
I know. We get excited about this. It reveals a righteousness of God that produces faith.
For so long,
Wow. Yeah.
we did not understand. We did
Yeah.
not understand. I did not understand the good news.
Yeah.
It wasn't good news.
No.
It was gospel. And some people are going, well, isn't that the same? No, the gospel was declared as a standard.
Yeah.
This is the standard.
Yeah.
But good news says
It's been done.
it's been done.
It's been done.
And now
done.
I want to learn to live
Wow.
from that reality
Yeah.
of what's declared in me.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's where we can live unleashed,
Yes.
knowing
Yes.
it's already been accomplished.
Yes.
He says, he goes on, I think in Romans, it talks about the
Yeah.
idea that he's not ashamed. He has nothing to be ashamed about. He is fully, completely secure in who he is.
Yes. In this good news. Yeah.
Regardless of the process, he
Yes.
is secure
Yes.
in knowing
Yeah.
who he is.
Yes.
Because he's resting on God's power that's
Yes.
already working in him.
Yes.
It's working
Powerful.
in him.
Yeah.
And he says, and this good news
Yes. Wow.
saves us.
Yes. Yeah.
What does it save us from? It saves us from disappointment. It saves us from hurt. It saves us from maybe not from hurt, we get hurt, but it saves us from the sting and the power of prison.
Yes.
Being in prison to those things.
It saves us from the lie.
It saves us from the lie. It saves us from the shame.
Yes, it
It
does.
saves us from the disappointment. It
Yes.
saves us from the striving.
Yes.
We emphasize that because that's been a reality so deeply entrenched while we
Yes.
learn in church culture
Yes.
that we take it wherever we've gone.
Yes.
And God wants to
Yeah.
uproot those
And
things
yes,
because
he
he
does.
wants us to
Yeah.
be unleashed.
Yes, because sometimes when we're leashed, like when we're bound in striving, we put the same bondage on other people. And
Absolutely
and
we do.
Because Paul knew it, and he put the bondage, and he encountered good news, and it unleashed him.
Yes.
And now his heart, his passion was to see that liberation
Yes.
in everyone around him.
Yeah.
And he just said, I'm not ashamed of this good news because it is powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the second verse, and it says, this good news unveiled this right standing with God. And it moves us from receiving life through faith to let the power of living faith. And it's a continual awakening of faith. And it causes...
I love that. It's a continual awakening
Yes,
of faith
it is.
because it's a process of learning.
Yes.
It's a process of having our eyes open.
Yeah.
It's not that, now we get the next level. No.
No.
We just come from an understanding
Yes.
that,
We see it.
And that
We see
reality
it.
can be lived out in
Yes.
us. And so
Yeah.
I don't want
Wow.
anyone, if you've ever felt condemned, if you ever felt like you haven't measured up, if you always
Yeah.
felt like that God is just not that impressed with you, I want to tell you
Jesus.
right now that is not true.
Yes.
Because He is.
Yes.
His life power is already in you.
Yes,
and
it
He
is.
wants to awaken that.
Yes.
He wants to awaken
Yes,
that. It's
He
almost
does.
like it's almost like having
Yeah.
what good is having $1 million in the bank account unless we put it to work?
Yeah. And knowing you have it.
And knowing you have it, but not putting it to work.
That's right.
Sometimes we don't
That's
know we
right.
have it.
That's right.
But that's what liberating
Yes.
revelation does, is it tells
Yes.
us we have it available to
Yes.
us. It's ours.
Yes, it is.
And now we don't have to
Wow.
live from how do we tap into that?
Yeah.
How do we strive to release that $1 million?
Yes, what do
but
I have to
rather,
do to earn
or
it?
how do we have to do to earn it? It's
Yes.
already yours.
Yeah.
How do I put it to work?
Yes. Yeah. And
How do I
Yeah.
unleash that to make the most of it?
And you know what? Like when Paul says this good news, it actually brings faith. It brings faith to life. It births faith in you. So
Yes.
you know what? To grow, you meditate, you get your eyes on that good news.
Yes.
Don't take it off.
Yeah.
Don't take it on yourself. Don't
Yeah,
compare yourself.
yeah.
Get out of that perfection box.
I'm getting liberated from that.
Yes.
Yes. When we live to strive
Yeah.
to acquire what others have, we lose the joy of our own journey.
Yes.
And for too long, I've lived
Yes.
disappointed. Even throughout the week, sometimes I'm disappointed
Yes.
because I expect something to be here,
Yeah.
and then I don't enjoy what's here.
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
my patience is down, my frustration is up,
Yes.
my let's go,
Yeah.
and that's no way to live.
Jesus wants.
And it's like we did the last couple of days. All of
Yeah.
a sudden it hit. We've got to keep
Yeah.
it real.
Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to tell you something that you can attain and you can work for.
Yeah.
You have to live like this, to be like this. I say let the life of Jesus alive in you
Yes.
and watch what He can do
Yes.
through you.
Yes, because that's good news.
That's
is
the good news
There's
of
nothing
wanting to liberate you.
Yes. I said there's nothing to prove. No one to impress. Living in the good news will produce faith, which will lead to more faith. It's an awakening to an awakening. Freedom to freedom.
Yes.
Faith to faith. Glory to glory. That's how Jesus has created us
Yeah,
to live.
absolutely.
It's powerful. It's
It is
freeing.
incredibly powerful.
And you know what? You know what it says to me? It's possible. Nothing is impossible. Nothing.
If we really want to grab hold of this, we need to understand, first of
Yeah.
all, we have to understand who we are. When we
Yes.
compare
Yeah.
ourselves to a standard that we're trying to reach,
Yeah.
we're going to set ourselves up for
Yeah.
disappointment. I don't mean don't aim. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying when you're striving for something you can't reach, it is going to bind us up.
Yeah.
Begin
Yeah.
to celebrate who you are,
Yes.
what God has done in your
That's
life,
it. That is
letting
good news.
His
Yes.
reality come alive in you.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
will see who you are, and
Yes.
you'll live out of that reality.
That's
and
the
that
thing.
reality,
Yes.
then you won't be ashamed.
No, there's no one to no.
Then you won't be ashamed.
No.
You won't be striving for something that has already
Yes.
been obtained.
Yes. Wow.
But we need to
Wow.
understand that we have to let that loose. That reality sits there like $1 million.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
we unloose it,
Yes.
unleash it,
Yeah.
we letting that reality become alive to our everyday life. And
Yes.
that's what makes
Yeah.
walking with God so empowering, is because
Yes.
everything He is
Yes.
available to me
Yes.
and can be lived through me.
Yes.
And we need to
Yeah.
celebrate that
Yeah.
journey
Yes.
of ups and downs and forwards and backwards and ups and downs, because
Yes.
it's in that journey that we discover
That's
what
right.
He's already given
Yes.
to us, and then I'm
Yeah. Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the power of this good
Yes.
news. That's the
Yeah.
reality of this good news that we
Yes, it
want
is.
to fully understand in this
And
journey.
that word power, this good news is powerful. It includes like the miraculous. It includes healing of deep things. It's just all covering.
Absolutely.
It is a dynamic Dunamis power.
And we want you to
Yes.
experience this
Yes.
with us in this journey.
Yes.
We want you to discover God's
Yes.
best for your life.
Yeah.
We want you to discover freedom that He has in store for you.
Yes.
Not in waiting. It's already yours. And we want to help awaken that in you.
That's right.
We want to help awaken that in you.
Yeah.
And that's powerful when that is a
Yes.
reality.
And that's what Paul says. When we speak the good news, it will awaken you. That's the seed, the good news, because it's done.
Yes.
It's going to produce faith. And when you see it, that's
I love
what
it.
faith
It
is.
produces faith.
Yes,
and
it
when
does.
faith grows,
Yep.
more
Yeah.
of it becomes a reality.
Yeah, because you see it.
And again, it's not about
Jesus.
stinking striving.
Nope.
That drove
No.
me nuts.
Yep.
I don't like that. That's how
Yes.
church culture has embraced the good news many
Yes.
times.
Yeah.
Because it's a false indication
Yes.
of what already is yours, and you're trying to attain
Yes.
for that.
That's
and
right.
so many people have been
Yeah.
discouraged and frustrated, and
Yes.
they've walked away from
Yes.
faith because
Yes.
it's something they can't obtain.
I know.
And I want to tell you, it's already yours.
Yes. And you know what? Like, even some people, and I'm just going to say this because this is what's been on our heart. Some, famous people or worship leaders, whatever, saying leaving the faith. And I seriously think they haven't left the faith, but they're very tired of having to prove,
And
of having to
strive and
live in
work
that
and have a
box.
certain
And they
picture.
just had enough.
Yep.
And Jesus is going to meet them outside the box. And the real Jesus, the good news of Jesus, is
Yes.
going to unleash them.
But that's what it does.
Yes, it does.
When we try to create a picture,
Yes.
a certain persona of what we
Yes.
are or what we're presenting,
Yes.
who we are.
Yeah.
If we are striving
Jesus.
to keep an image
Yeah.
that they need to know I'm serious with God. They need to know I'm really deep with Jesus, and I need to say
Yeah.
Jesus more often, and I need to quote scripture all the time, and I need to do this, I need to do that, so people have the perception that I have it together.
Yes.
That's not real.
No.
Because it's not about having it together. It's understanding who we are and letting
Jesus.
that reality live
Yes.
in us.
Yes.
And when we
Yes.
see that,
Yes.
then our life becomes unleashed.
Yes.
We're no longer in condemnation.
Yes.
Our
Yep.
condemnation is not because we're striving to the point where God's happy with us. Our no condemnation is because God already declared it over us, and we're just figuring it out and
Yes.
finding out for ourselves
That's
that
right.
it becomes alive.
That's right. Yeah.
He's a way maker.
Yes, he is. Powerful song.
Absolutely.
I
It's
love
incredible.
it. That is
Incredible.
so powerful, honey.
Thank you so much
Wow.
for joining us again. I think we'll cut it
Wow.
off here. It's been such a blessing
it's
and honor.
been such a great morning.
And I just hope in some way this has
Yes.
helped you. Let us
Yes.
know if this has helped you
Yes.
in any way, because
Yeah.
it really encourages
Yeah.
us, because sometimes we need that encouragement.
Yes.
We do. We
Yes.
long for that. We enjoy that.
We enjoy the connection and the
Absolutely.
back and
Just
forth.
to
We
know
love
that-
your comments. We love when
we
you
love your
say,
comments.
hey,
We have to
good
look at them
morning.
afterward because we
I
can't
know,
see them as they're going
but
on.
We love it. We love the interaction. And there
Absolutely.
are people that have messaged us
Yeah.
and just shared, whether it's struggle or something
Yes.
God's doing. We love that. We love the connection in our community,
God
our church
absolutely
family.
admires you.
Yes, he does.
God's purpose to unleash you to be
Yes.
who He's created you to be.
Yes.
And there's nothing
Yes.
that stands in our way other than
Yes.
our limitation of understanding what we
Yes.
are.
So
and
we
we want to speak over that right now over your life. We want to speak
Yes.
over that in your life.
Yeah.
That this revelation becomes real, because when
Yes.
it begins to take off, it's like a
telling you.
waterfall. It just keeps building,
It
keeps
is
building,
going
keeps
to.
building, and you will
Jesus.
experience freedom like you've never had before.
Yes.
Freedom like
God
you've never had
wants
before.
us to live
We've got some great
unleashed.
resources on our YouTube channel, Esteban Church of
Yes.
God. We encourage you to check that out.
Yeah.
Previous messages and
Yeah.
worship things that we got up there too that you can listen to.
Yes.
Like us on Facebook. And hey, would you do
Yeah.
us a favor? Would you subscribe to our YouTube channel?
Yeah.
And just make it more available to other people? We would love that. We would so appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Looking forward to
What
Wednesday
an
night again.
awesome weekend. Have
Absolutely.
an awesome long weekend,
Enjoy
everybody.
the sunshine.
We love
Enjoy
it.
your families.
Yes.
Enjoy the people
Yeah.
around you.
We love you guys.
And live from who you really
Yes,
are.
live unleashed.
Thank you. Goodbye,
okay,
folks.
guys. Good to see ya.